Okay, you're fine. Hello. Hello, guys. We just managed to make it work a few seconds ago because it seems that YouTube is overloaded. So yeah, I don't know how many of you are there. It seems like 21. Oh yeah, nice. You guys are there. I like that. Are you bored? Yeah. Oh yeah, nice. Okay. It's the first time I do that, so let's see how it works. Yeah, someone is asking me how hard is the confinement. Actually, here in Switzerland, it's not too hard because yeah, we're allowed to get out, so we have this luxury. But here in Verbi, we've been hit really hard with a virus, so I must say that I've been feeling quite bad in the last few days, and I was better, and now I'm bad again. So yeah. Anyways, let's talk snowboarding. So if you guys have any questions, any subjects, I'm really psyched to see how many you guys are there. But yeah, I saw a question there, like to ask me if I was bored, and I must say that I'm starting to get bored. Yeah, I have my little baby at home, so every day we go for a little walk here and there. But yeah, with the virus, I kind of need to stay at home as much as I can, and it doesn't feel like me. Yeah, cool. Like I can see some questions that are a bit more about snowboarding. So yeah, there's one here from Lausanne. Can you use a splitboard like two skis to make a traverse or a plateau on a plateau? Yes, I think that's something that you use quite a lot, especially if you don't have a very straight up itinerary. Some splitboards even have a system to lock your binding on your splitboard, and that's going to be a lot better than like to ski down a bit and then start touring again instead of having to change, go to the bottom and change back on again. You're going to lose so much time, and yeah, that's something that you will see quickly that you know you get to practice more and more the changeover. But if you can afford not to do it, do that. I have one little tip for that, concerning the bindings. When you start to ski down, it's good to put angle on your high back. So it's good to not leave your high back as open as possible to get your range of motion when you're touring, but to bring back the high back with angle so that it will keep your boots and you're going to be able to ski a lot better that way. Another question. I ride next to slopes on ungroomed terrain, but I want to improve my technique by going further from the slopes. However, most of the time I am alone on the slope. How should I progress? That's a tough question. I think freeriding is a lot about patience. So you really need to yeah, take your time when you learn, and if you're alone, that's kind of something which doesn't really work to progress. Like you're gonna have such a slow progression because you're gonna have no point of comparison. So like try to find friends, try to find informations every day when you go, try to read the avalanche bulletin, try to see what's happening, see what people are doing what, and that will give you slowly an idea. But the important is to always keep a margin of safety. That's really important. So a question from, oh yeah, I've got my questions here. Perfect. Thanks, assistant. What brand of splitboard do you recommend? Easy. Rossignol. No, yeah, I'll be preaching for my XV because I really love it. And we made a sashimi this year, which is a lot more powy, like more playful and stuff. But yeah, I think more and more brands do amazing splitboards. Jones, Burton, like yeah, every company has been spending a lot of energy, and it's been really cool to see the progression in the gear. A question from Pierre. What stance and angles do you have on the sashimi board? I personally have always the same angle and stance. So I always have 59 centimeters of stance, and I have 3 degrees on the back foot and 18, 21 degrees on the front foot. And that's kind of something, you know, that I know it's there. I know it works well for me, so I don't try to test things. Like I found my thing, and I think that helps a lot. And like the sashimi is quite a wide board, so it really doesn't need to change it. But yeah, it is becoming my favorite board, to be honest. Yeah. Tak tak tak. Wow, you guys are on fire. That's great. What is the best hand to use when riding with an ice axe? The up mountain hand or the down mountain hand? Oh, that's a very good question, outdoor man. I usually have my ice axe in the backhand. It's not really up mountain or down mountain, because in snowboarding, I think the hands are always on the same side. But I have it always on my like on the side that's on my tail, the tail of my board. That's usually why I keep it, because when I ride, I know that if anything happens, first of all, I will touch the snow with my backhand with the ice axe, and that will give me a lot of stability. But also, if anything happens, I can let go; it will go behind me, and also, I think you have a little bit more mobility with the back arm rather than with the front one. So I think that's my thing. Another question from, I'm sorry, I'm missing quite a lot of questions, but you guys are really onto it. So yeah. So another question from, I don't know who. During your competition days, what was your gym workout program? To be honest, I've never really had a gym workout program because it didn't really work well for me. But I know that if I wanted to really work on something, it was always the abs. I was always like trying to do a combination of a bit of yoga and then do some abs. I feel that's the most important, because if you have a good core, you know, you will be so strong on your board, and it will allow you to like recover your mistakes, stay on your feet, and that's the most important. And the legs, they come when you ride. Like the overall shape comes whenever you ride. And personally, I've always liked better to kind of to do different sports where I would have fun, like so always in nature, like biking, climbing, mountaineering, surfing, all of that, and that has been kind of for me my preparation. But yeah, tac tac tac. A question from Franceroca. Were you doing when you were doing competing? Were you doing a mental preparation? I've always been kind of too sure of myself to do like too cool to do mental preparation. But I think now that I am a bit older and I look back, I think that it could have helped me. But I used to be so confident back in the days, like especially on the years when I was competing and going hard for it. Yeah, I guess I've never done really any mental preparation, but I'm sure it could have helped me. But whatever, I've always been a bit more feeling that I was achieving better when I was less prepared. It's actually always been really strange. Yeah. Question from Oleg. What do you think about binding systems to use ski touring hard boots or split boards? I think there is a really good movement coming up with the hard boots, but I think the technology that's out there right now is not really sexy. I can see that it works if you really make it, tune it well and everything, get used to it. But to me, I think it needs there needs to be like a bit of an evolution. So for sure, I see it as somehow the future, but it needs to be a hybrid between hard boots and a soft boots. But right now it's not there. So I'm really dreaming to see the industry come together, like having some brands, making it happen together. But I haven't seen it yet. But come on, snowboarders, join up, especially in these times of Corona craziness. Like we should just all get together and think the best hard boot, soft boot system for splitboarding, right? I can see the comment from Christoph. No, nice one. Yeah, it's good to be open. And how did you come up with the eagle position? That's a good one. The eagle position, I don't know. It's like years ago I did a bit of skydiving, and I was, really trying to get into the, you know, that position where you just glide in the air. Fuck, I don't remember the name of it. It's a skydiving position where you use your body with the eagle position to move, and that's like the position that base jumpers use it and stuff. And I remember kind of for fun trying it on the slope and feeling kind of that I could control a bit the air, and it kind of came like that. And then I realized that it was really a good stabilization tool, and also it was really fun whenever I was having enough speed to just like put myself into the ego and lean onto the air rather than get all the bumps and all the, you know, vibrations from the terrain underneath. Well, question from Marco. Hello from Belgium. Any projects for next year? New movies coming? Well, I'm gonna keep going this winter with some more how-to. I'm actually supposed to film some more now, but I'll wait until the virus is gone. But yeah, I have been working on a very big film, like which was like getting me to the poles and things. And yeah, now there's a bit of a change of program, so I'm a bit on hold, and I'm gonna see what's happening. But yeah, I had been kind of taking a rest from big expeditions, and I was really ready to do a big trip. But yeah, right now it's yeah, it's up in the air. So I'll see. I'll work on something for sure. A question from Letobian, what were your plans for the rest of the now terminated season? Well, the season is not completely terminated, so I am hoping within 2-3 weeks to being able to go and tour up the mountains and go and do some little adventures, but for sure it's going to be a lot less intense than what was planned. But originally I had a trip in Greenland planned, yeah, and then I had a lot of filming to be done around here in Verbier, but let's see. Question from Tuck. Oh. Question from Oleg asking me if the beer was bad. Yes, it was very bad. I left it sitting like in the fermentation for too long, so I kind of screwed it up. But yeah, I guess it's work in progress. It's been really nice to feel kind of the you know, like feel the ingredients and stuff, but I need to spend more time doing it because I really like it. Yeah. Question from Joseph. Hey Xavier, where do you see freeriding in the Freeride World Tour going in the upcoming years? Well, to be honest, like people have asked me this question, I don't know, for 10-15 years already. And at some point I remember being at the Verbier Extreme and thinking, oh, cannot go much further, and like everyone is talking about freestyle, but I find it really hard to imagine that people are going to put some tricks into the Bec des Roses. And then every year I'm getting surprised because the riders are sending it more and more, and the actions now are like so crazy, especially on the ski man category. Also on the snowboarding this year, like there's been some really good energy going up, but I think clearly there will be some yeah, like more tricks with more speed, with more intensity, and it's been happening slowly. It keeps on growing, and I'm really thrilled to see the evolution. Makes me feel old, to be honest, but I'm proud to see the youngers keep pushing it and taking it to where it is. And yeah, I think that one evolution for the Freeride World Tour that I would like to see is slightly bigger faces, because even though the show is good, I find that apart from Verbier, riders could have a bit more time to really express their levels, and right now, like, because the faces are small, like there is kind of not that much time to, well, it's kind of, they need to send something really big on a short distance, so it's kind of a bit more of a gamble, but yeah, we'll see, it will come. Question from Yaroslav: do you still feel fear sometimes, and how do you deal with that? I feel fear a lot, and for me, fear is a part of the deal to be free riding, to do what I do, because I know that it's the fear which keeps me focused on what's happening and which keeps me trying to see the danger. because yeah, in the mountains, danger comes from so many places, and it will, you know, if you start having the best day of your life and just focus on the pleasure, you will forget, you know, some signs here and there, and yeah, and so fear in there keeps you really, like, your mind focused on what's happening around, and it's very important. So don't block your fear. Fear is annoying a bit, but you need to acknowledge it, because yeah, it will keep you on your toes. Next question from which North Faces in the Alps are still on your to-do list? I think Chamonix has got still a lot of North Faces that I would like to do. I think I've seen yeah, Victor go to the Pan de Sucre this year, and it kind of makes me want to go there. I kind of like the look of that face. I missed it years ago with Andreas and Sam when they went, so maybe it could be a nice one to go. And yeah, I don't know, Mont Blanc has always been to me the pinnacle, and I've always told myself, okay, this is yeah, this is the biggest one, the craziest one. I have never had the chance to do it, but who knows? Yeah, I think I'd like to go and hit it some days. Next question. I heard that Europe had a lame of a winter as Eastern America. Is it true? I think, well, it was really dry for a while, so a lot of sun for a long time, but actually since 1 month it's been really, really nice. And honestly, even when it was dry, I kind of enjoyed it, because it was still safe out there, and in North Faces you'd find really nice snow. You know, it was like that sugary snow, which is very stable, very predictable, so which allows you to go in really like well exposed lines. So I think that these were conditions that I almost prefer to the Dream Powder Day, because the Dream Powder Day, I kind of hate it more and more in resort when everyone is just going crazy. It's just such a battle to open the lines that people are taking stupid risk, and you feel the tension in the air. And to me, it kind of kills a lot of the pleasure. So I would prefer slightly less good snow conditions, but more freedom, less people, and yeah, focusing a bit more on the pleasure. Oh, I see a question from my sister. Any plans in filming with Léonie Dru in Quebec this year? Yeah, Léonie, she's too strong for me. No, that's my little niece. That's cool too. Big love to all the family. There's a question from Loke, who's asking if I could give some tips to traverse a slope with a splitboard, which is kind of a bit hard. So for sure, like, he says that he's struggling compared to skiers, and that's for sure something which will always happen, because skis are more narrow and you have harder shoes, which means that the ski doesn't move at all, doesn't like flex. So like, one tip I could say is like to not, like, also, you know, skip not having your binding fully open, like your high back, like, so keep a bit of a forward lean on your high back. That will keep your boot a bit tighter, really tighten your bindings and your boots well. And when you tour, try to let your ski slide on the snow, you know, like, don't lift your foot, and because that will create a friction between, you know, like the edge of your skin and the snow, and that will grab a bit better. But you will see that it will never be as perfect as skis for that. But you will quickly learn that instead of trying to just follow the skier, instead of going into the traverse, you'll go at the bottom of the run to like, you will traverse on an easier spot, let's say, and then start touring up, maybe with crampons or without them, but you will just see a different line into the mountains. I think that's super important, to think as a snowboarder and not try to follow skiers and be frustrated. I actually have an episode I want to do, you know, to kind of teach skiers and snowboarders to ride together. So skiers to take snowboarders with them, so to make the nicest track, for example, and also to not stop before a flat section, to always kind of choose an itinerary where there won't be a little uphill where people are gonna have to use their poles. You know, all these little tricks that kind of can make your day much better compared to just struggling. Scottish freeride. Xavier, do you have a favorite line and a favorite mountain of all the peaks that you have ridden? Look at this guy. I think, yeah, that face. I normally have zero picture of me snowboarding in my house, but this photo was really nice, like Tero Repo printed it on aluminum, and it's just too nice to let it hanging. But yeah, it was like, this was with Jeremy Jones when we filmed Deeper. It was in the end of a glacier bay, it's called, and it was like in the Spine Institute, and that was such a mega line. We got up, well, I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning with Josh Dirksen, and he accompanied me to the top, and we actually had to go behind the ridge like for quite a while, and then find an entry in the middle of these gigantic cornices. That was that was quite something. I think that was really a strong one that I'm proud of. Unfortunately, it didn't get filmed really well, but in my heart it's there, and that's the most important. Question from Diego: how do you analyze a line before doing it in terms of dimensions? That's a very important point, because it's always really difficult to know the size of features, and you always get surprised, and it's good to really take this into consideration. So for me, like the final really judgment for the size will be, I will try to pick up something that's really noticeable at the top, and then compare it to all the things in the face. And I will keep this in my head, so that I know when I'm at the top, I can see this noticeable point, and that gives me a scale to see all the sizes of jumps, couloirs, and everything into my line. And that's really important, because if you have a jump that's 20 meters instead of 5, it's gonna feel a lot different. Tartiflette or raclette? I think I'm a bit more of a raclette guy, but I like both. Yeah, I'm a big melted cheese guy. Yeah. Lucas, goofy or regular, but yeah, I'm not racist. It's okay. Brown, how often will you dig a pit when you go out? Cheers, stay healthy. Thanks, bro. I don't do snow pits enough, and that's not much into the European culture. But honestly, I want to get more into it, because I remember in North America we did it all the time, and it's quite helpful, even though it's not perfect science. Gives you a really good idea on what's underneath into the snow. And yeah, I'm actually planning to do an episode about it, and I will also kind of refresh my own mind about it. So yeah, something to come that I will definitely keep in the books. And thanks, Brown, for bringing it up. Tac. Tit. Best memories on the Freeride tour, the opening of the De Le Rue cliff. Yeah, that was a very intense moment, that's for sure. And yes, something I really needed to pull quite deep into myself. So yeah, I think that might be it. It's true, because I had the world champion title in the game, so I should not crash, otherwise I would lose the title. And I could have done a really easy run, but I so wanted to do that line, and it worked. So it's been really special for me. Yeah. Oh, crazy freeride over sand dunes in Peru. Did you hear about sandboarding? Well, I've seen like some really cool footage about sand riding in Peru, and I think that would be definitely something that I would like to check someday. Especially that I love Peru, the Peruvian food, the Peruvian surfing. So yeah, need to go back there. What do you think is the best splitboard binding brand? I get asked that a lot, and honestly, I think all the brands have like pretty good systems right now between yeah, Plume, Spark, Union. I think everyone does a pretty good job. I personally use the Plumes, and yeah, I've been really happy. I've had really no problems at all. But yeah, I can't tell you much more. What is your strategy to get over the Corona isolation? There's White Frontier. No, I should not. One a day is okay. No, bad joke, bad joke. Like when, like a question from Gilbert, when is the movie coming together with Victor? Ah, that's a good point. I really need to do one. He's got such an energy right now, and I'm so proud of his writing. And that, yeah, it would be nice to get my ass kicked a little bit, and that he shows me how it's done. But yeah, kind of dreaming of a family trip into Alaska, even with my daughter now, because she's working hard, and him, and I kind of make De Le Rue movie. Like, yeah, I think that's need to work on that. A question from Oscar: how often do you practice Snowkite, and do you think it's the future of snowboard touring? Well, I think honestly, I spent this one day with Jerome Josselin last year, and it's just mind blowing, but it just doesn't work everywhere. So it will work in some spots really well, and you need to know your spot to being able to play with the conditions. But for example, here in Verbier, there is like really little wind. It's always really wind protected, which is great for snow and for paragliding and for anything. But for snow kiting, it's like really a nightmare. So I keep on trying to go, and I just don't understand the wind here. So so yeah, I think it could be the future in some places, but not in others. But if you have the chance to go to the Lotare or one of those big cols which has big consistent wind, I think you'd have a blast, because yeah, honestly, last year I remember this one moment, like in 10 minutes we went up 1,000 meters. It's just mental. Yeah. So yeah, like a question from Vegan Evo. Any spots that you recommend? For sure, the Lotare, it's like definitely the, you know, it's in La Grave. It's the mecca for that. But I think Norway could be really good. Lungen. I think if I wanted to go and do a trip somewhere with a Snowkite, I think that would be there. Yeah. So think about it, and I'm looking forward to see some videos, and maybe I'll join you actually. Yeah, because I find that it's really cool with the Snowkite to see the mountain in a different way, and it makes you kind of try to understand it, try to read the wind, try to see why the wind comes, and it makes you a better mountaineer, because it makes you understand the environment better. And question from Simon: what's your favorite location for snowboarding? That's a good question. I think it depends for what, but I would say, yeah, for every day, I'm really happy in Verbier because it's playful. There's a bit of everything. They're my mates, and when I go more technical, like Chamonix is definitely the place, you know, which is great because you get access in really short time to amazing high alpine mountaineering. Then if I want to ride big heavy metal power lines, Alaska is the place. And for me, like the place that has been the most beautiful, the most where the nature has been the most incredible has been Antarctica. And it's of course quite some ways away, but it's been really like for me like paradise kind of in a way. But also if I went just on a mellow trip, like kind of holiday snowboarding trip, I think Japan is probably also a place where you have zero stress, a lot of really cool culture, and pow to the next. So if you go kind of second half of January, normally you're quite sure to hit it right. And yeah, I definitely recommend that. Question from Simon: do you ski? I used to ski when I was a kid. And that's how I, because I grew up in a ski resort, so I skied until I was 13. But in powder, I find that I have more fun on a snowboard because of that freedom. So I think I've been trying telemark, and I found a bit more of that freedom that you get into snowboarding. But skiing, like the like hard ski boots, I think I'm struggling with that. What's the fastest you've been on a snowboard? I don't know. That's a good question. I need to to measure myself. À ta santé. Yeah, thanks, Tonton. I'm actually late in the questions. You guys are so fast. Tak Tak, do you think is the perfect way to improve your freeriding skills in order to start competing? Some high-level techniques training program. I don't think there needs to be anything really special, really technical. But I think for me, the one point that will make you a better competition snowboarder is to like treat a face that you ride always like as if you're filming it or competing on it, which means that you need to watch it from in front, study it, find a line, record it in your head and maybe on a camera that can help you also, and then go to the top and ride it without stopping, because that's actually something that you don't do even if you free ride every day. Even if you're like one of the most amazing free riders, you're not going to ride like this unless you're forced to. So force yourself to do this and take the time to do it over and over and over, and you'll see that you will improve a lot. And if you have someone that is filming you, that will also help a ton, because you will see your mistakes and you will improve from those. But if you just ride, you will improve till a certain point, but your progression will be limited. A question from Paul: how do you deal with all the pain, like linked to snowboarding? So ankles and lower back, and any tips for intermediate advanced snowboarders? That's a good point, because honestly, yeah, pain when you ride a lot, it's kind of tough on your body. So for me, like over the years, one thing that has been really helpful has been yoga. So I always been no, I was always kind of against like the proper hour sessions, because I was lazy and I knew that every time I would do an hour yoga once in a while, but I feel lazy, and the problem is that it's not something that you keep on a sustainable path. But I've been doing this 7-minute program in the morning or in the evening, but mostly in the morning, and that has changed my life, honestly. I've done that for the last, I think, 10-15 years. I do it almost every day. It just takes you 7 minutes, but it's enough, to breathe, to kind of loosen everything, twist a little bit. And for me, that has kind of stopped me from having to go to see an osteopath. But yeah, other than that, I've been feeling a bit of pain in my back knee in the last few years, and that's because I've got too tight IT bands, kind of in a way. So I've been kind of doing a lot of pigeon pose and stuff like this to try to get rid of it. But it's something that really annoys me, because I feel that pain only in snowboarding, and whenever you have a bit of pain, it kind of kills your pleasure. So yeah. It's kind of a little reminder that age is passing and that you need to take care of your body and eat well and drink a lot and, well, a lot of water. But, yeah. First time riding switching powder. Any advice? Riding switching powder? Well, no, it's a good place to try it, because, yeah, if you fall, it's going to be powder. But yeah, I know that if you have a proper freeride board with a wide nose and a pintail, it's going to be a bit harder. So you might want to center your bindings a bit more. But it's just a bit more of a exaggerated movement compared than going switch on a normal slope. But yeah. Question from Emily B. Imagine your perfect line. What features do you look for, and what tools would you use to find them? it's something like finding the perfect line is something very personal, because a perfect line is something that's that's related to so many factors. They're not like there's not a ranking of the best line, and one line will be the best line one day with the special light, special snow conditions, but then with other conditions, a few days later, it won't be anymore the nicest line in the world. So it's just what speaks to your heart, what speaks to also your level. So knowing your level, knowing your style will be very important to kind of pick your dream face. And and then after it's not something factual, it's something which is more artistic, which speaks to feelings rather than facts. So and I think that's the beauty of it. Yeah. Question from Simon. Can you make a video about your stretching? Like I am doing, like it's gonna come in the next episodes, which are gonna come out early next year. So how to, well, yoga before snowboarding and yoga after snowboarding. I think these will be like really short sessions that you can easily do every day, because I think that's something really helpful for me. But I'm going to be doing that with Emilian Badou, because he's a guru master now, and and he's a good friend. So yeah, you'll see that coming soon. Question from Michael. Did you see some place which changed during your career due to climate change? Do you think that people around freeriding needs more education about nature and how to behave in nature? I think, well, first of all, I think that freeriders are connected to nature. If you like freeriding, you like being in the mountains, with the element, and you have some kind of a respect for it. So I'm not really thinking that people should really learn about respecting the nature. I think it's more in everyday life that we need to remember how beautiful the mountain is. And of course, it's not always easy to see the real effects of global warming and things. But in the mountains, we have we have glaciers, which are such an obvious testimony of the speed, of the crazy speed that the global warming is going, and of the abnormality of it. So I think if you want to witness that, go to any kind of glacier in the Alps. Like you have a lot of resorts around the Alps if you're around there, but probably anywhere around the world with glaciers, and try to go from a year to the next, and you will see that always to add up some more stairs, and it's just pretty scary. And if you try to ask around or see old picture to see where the level of the glacier was, it makes you realize that there's not much time for those glaciers. Yeah. Question from Emily: what do you do to mitigate your risk in the backcountry, and how do you plan and prepare for each adventure? Yeah, I think it's a very important topic, because for sure, if you go out there every day and that you just keep on pushing really hard, you're like playing with your margin, eventually it's just statistical that things are gonna go bad. So I think it's really know and take into consideration that you are, that when you're in the mountains, when you're playing with the elements, it's kind of a privilege which you should not take for granted. And yeah, by doing this, you will kind of appreciate it when it's the right time to do it, but also learn to just not go when you feel it's not perfect, whenever it's not there all the time. And you will kind of appreciate a lot when you're sending it hard, and also really enjoy it when you have to step it down a little bit. But I think it's really a part of the lesson to learn to become a good freerider, to learn how to pace yourself down and appreciate the mountains as it is. It's not always about charging, sending it huge. There are moments for that, but there are moments where you need to know how to set back a little bit and take it mellow and respect kind of like the surroundings. Yeah. To be honest, honestly, unfortunately, quite often it takes something like a bad event happening to be realizing this kind of thing, and to being able to kind of realize how much power the mountains have and how little you are, and how not sustainable it is to just charge all the time without thinking. Yeah. Question from Jonas. Do you have any forward lean? I do. That's something I play with. So depending on the conditions, I usually have a bit more forward lean on the back foot rather than on the front foot. And depending, if it's really pure huge pow and really mellow riding, I will open completely my bindings, kind of, and that's going to be gives me a lot more playfulness and stuff. But as soon as the snow becomes more changey, more technical, that I need to send some heavy metal stuff, I will bring a bit more forward lean. So it will make me a bit more rigid, but at the same time, it will give a bit more response to my onto my feet. Questions for icy conditions. Do you put your edge 87 or 88 degrees? Honestly, not really. If you have on 90 degrees, you can get really sharp edges. I try to, yeah, like if I have clean edges, I think normally it's enough. And yeah, if you go on places where you think that you need 87 degrees, it's going to be really specific. It's going to be really a north face, which has underlying ice or something, and that's something that you need to be really careful of. I prefer to trust my ice axe rather than like a few degrees on my edges. And also, if you have 87 or 88 degrees edges, they will be more fragile. So whenever you touch a rock, you will destroy your edges a lot faster. So for me, yeah, have a stone in the bag to clean the edges very often, and have them sharp, but it doesn't need to be a World Cup skiing sharp. Another question: how important is board's profile and shape for pro rider? Do brand product managers dictate which sports team riders should ride and therefore advertise? Not really, actually. I think most brands, like as a rider, when you've been with a brand for a long time, you get really a say in the evolution of the board. And I've been lucky enough to make my own boards, so they were like really exactly how I wanted. But I think the brands that are successful, normally they've been able to trust the rider's opinion, and to try to influence people to to get to try those shapes that and those constructions that the riders have been proposing. And even though it's been a bit early at the time whenever the idea comes, usually it ends up being something that people really like. So yeah, some brands have been good for that, and they've been rewarded, I think. And it's been definitely the case with my with all my products at Roussillon. Yeah. Tac. Well, like stiffer board or softer one. I think that's a question of style. I know that I always think that my boards are not stiff, but apparently they're fairly stiff if you're light and if you don't like charging. But I think there is something to be taken into consideration. It's like there's the stiffness overall and the stiffness like in terms of torsion. These are two very different things. And I usually like to have the nose a bit stiff, but the tail not too much, so that you can like close your turns. And at the same time, not to have too much shit, sorry, I'm mixing my words. Torsion stiffness, because that will make a board feel really hard to ride. It will make it stable, but it will make it really like difficult to manage and to play with. So I think it will be a compromise. So having a softer boards will be fun and things, but as soon as you go fast, you will lose your edge. So if you really want to send big lines with speed, with everything, you need a tiny bit of rigidity. But yeah, playfulness is super important. So yeah, there's not one definite answer on that. Have you ever ridden in Romania? We have great mountains and pretty wild. I have never had that pleasure, and definitely something I would like to experience. I don't know well enough Eastern European countries, and maybe that will, yeah, future will take me there, I hope. Would you recommend to start splitboarding with voile adapters plus regular bindings, or initially save more for proper equipment? I think a proper equipment really makes sense, because yeah, it will like the way a proper equipment keeps your board together and the way your bindings are really onto your board make all the difference. And if you have a voile system, it will be really a compromise. It could be okay if it's super powdery, but if it's like somehow continental, somehow of a continental snowpack, you will really feel the pain for it. So if really splitboarding is into your dreams, I think I would really recommend to try to get a hold of a proper system. Question: did your Olympic competing experience help you with freeriding? I think so. I think it was like doing the Olympics was a great motivation to really be in shape, to ride fast, you know, into border crosses, to being able to hit some jumps without breaking at all, to get my head and my body strong. And I think those things really helped me like to be stronger. Sorry, I'm trying to read the questions at the same time. So it really helped me to be strong with myself on my board and things. So then in the mountains, all I would need to think of was the conditions around and to adapt myself as much as possible. But since everything was so locked down, the snowboarding was so locked down under my legs, you know, I could really focus on pushing the limits into the lines. So I think it's been really part of the progression for sure. Tag, how long are the boards you're riding? I feel like most pros ride much longer boards than recommended by the brands, shops, etc., etc. That's a very good point, Jakob, because yeah, I ride 63 normally, and if I want to ride big lines and film and hit big jumps, I'll go 67, and that's kind of a size that a lot of people say, "Wow, that's crazy," but it's actually pretty amazing the difference that it makes. A few centimeters. Basically, if you have the opportunity one day, just go in the mountains, make one line with one board, and if you can take like another line, well, another time the same line with a board that's a tiny bit bigger, like even 4 centimeters, you will see the difference. You might not feel it under the feet. The board will feel a bit more like a big boat, but then you see yourself, the shape of the turns and the speed that you have is pretty incredible. So that's something that yeah, that's a compromise that you need to choose on. Like if you want to have something that's playful and things, that's one thing, but if you want to send hard with a lot of speed, just get used to a bigger board and you will see the difference into your riding. It's pretty impressive what it does. Yeah. But it's true that the industry has always been pushing people. I find in snowboarding, you know, like it's been pushing people to buy boards that were not necessarily really made for the kind of riding that they wanted to do. And quite often it will, like people will sell you a board because it's the cool board rather than because this is the board which will allow you to do what you dream of. So try to really, before you buy your next board, instead of buying the cool board, try to think what kind of riding you like to do, you know, what makes you happy, what's your style, and buy the board according to that. Honestly, I think that would make a massive difference. Question from Alvin: what does Beanie ride? Asking for my wife. That's a good question, because for years I've been putting her onto yeah, you can take the 59 XV, it's fine and stuff, but actually it found out that yeah, she's been using the Diva for quite a while, and which is a proper women's board, and it's made all the difference, because I thought, oh, it's a small board, like it's not too wide for you, so it should be fine. But actually, women's board are really important because they're designed for women. Women have slightly shorter feet. They've got a bit less power to, like, for the torsion of it. Like, there are like all these little elements that you know, make them need a dedicated board for women. So yeah, I hope that the industry keeps on doing cool split boards for women, and cool freeride board for women. I know that Rossino is coming up with a Marion Hertie with a really nice model, which is going to come out next year. So just keep your eye on it. Yeah. Yeah, and like a stiff board as a beginner is really tricky, because also you will see that whenever you free ride, if it's powder, you can ride a stiff board, it's fine. But as soon as the terrain gets bumpy and you're not well placed on your board, all the vibrations will come into your legs, and it will be really unenjoyable because it won't absorb anything at all. So keep that in mind as well, to not go too stiff when you're beginning. Yeah. Alors, so one more about splitboarding. Which one would be more sufficient for a newbie, XV or sushi? Actually, if you're a newbie, sushi might not be the best option, because the sushi will be great in very specific conditions, which means when there is a lot of power, so tree riding kind of Japan style, or maybe in Canada, or in, yeah, or like BC style or whatever. But I think that if you're a beginner, you might want something that's really all round. And yeah, the XV is quite all round, although it's fairly advanced. You might have some other boards, like I think the sashimi might be a much better option, because it's like, yeah, it's a lot more all around. It's playful, it's easy. You have a bit of length, but you have a bit of tail as well if it's if the snow is firm. So yeah, I think I would recommend way more the sashimi rather than the sushi, and also a bit more than the XV. But the XV would be a great board to progress on it. Next question: do you know a spine spot in the Swiss Alps? Spines, it's not really. There's not such thing as a spine spot. The spines, they come at a certain time of the year, when you know, when it's not too cold, when it starts to be snowing, like just above the rain level. So basically, when rain transforms into snow, like into a storm, so it will snow kind of warm, and that snow will stick to really steep terrain. And whenever it snows a lot like this and without wind, the snow will just run down and it will create the spines. So you could have spines everywhere. Usually it happens more into maritime places, because there's this moisture in the air, which helps for that, like for the snow to stick. But yeah, usually you don't see them much. If you go in the high alpine around May, you might find it here and there, but you're gonna have to be lucky, because it's definitely not everywhere. Tac. A question: there's a difference between the XV board and the XV split board, because I want a freeride board, and I also think about do split board sometimes, but very sometimes. Actually, the split boards are made so that you will not find a difference between the normal model and the split board model, and I really like, actually, yeah, riding with a split board. And I think what's the most disturbing when you ride on a split board is the fact that the bindings are different. They're usually with metal, which is like feels different from the plastic. Also, the angles and the high backs are not going to be exactly the same. So I think that's the biggest difference. And I think that if you get used to ride with your split board a lot, you will notice it less and less. So yeah, it could be a thing to ride with your split board every day. If you can have the luxury of having the two, it's the best. But I definitely think that the older you get, the more you're going to be inspired by having a split board and being able to just go wherever you like, you know, having that freedom, because I think that's such a beauty of our sports. I've lost the questions here. No. Do you have any tips for riding in icy conditions? Yes, I do. When you ride in icy conditions, I think bring an ice axe. That's very important if you're doing like if you're exploring a little bit. The ice axe will really be key to you know, help you if you arrive in a spot where you're not when you're not very sure about yourself. Look, I've got my team here. No, and also I think what's something that's very important is to not use your upper body, but you really stay above your feet. So try to bend your knees and keeping your upper body upright as much as you can. That will make a big difference. That's a rule that's kind of applicable for any conditions as soon as it's not perfect, like being above your feet. That's kind of, I call it conservative riding, and that is what allows you, if anything goes weird, if there's a bump that surprises you, if you lose balance or anything, to be well balanced so that you don't get thrown overboard. And that's kind of a rule that's important for anything that you do around steeps. Question from Colin. Do you ever find it difficult to find riding partners when you put yourself in such technical terrain with ice axes, harnesses, crampons, etc.? It's true that it can be tough to find people that you are comfortable with, because especially if you're the most experienced, when you bring people, you know, there are things that you take for granted when you're above exposures and things, and that not necessarily everyone will be able to have the same reflexes that you have that you take for granted. So that's, you know, it takes a while to trust someone to being able to you know, to go with you and like go into these places where you need all those tools and all these skills. But yeah, sometimes you find the right partners to do that, and it's nice to keep that relationship strong, because yeah, like going and do stuff that's like that's really high level, it kind of requires to be two people. Yeah, I love going honestly on my own when the conditions are stable, and like to go a bit crazy, a bit rowdy with my with my ice axe, my crampons, whatever. I'll go and do myself something, but you know that you should be really trusting the conditions, because if anything happens, you're on your own, and that's something to watch out into the mountains. Yeah. Question from Vlad: do you still ride resorts? Yeah, I ride resorts a lot, but I usually use the resort to make an adventure somewhere else. So like in the Alps, we're lucky enough to have huge resorts which give you access to a lot of terrain. And so if you take the lifts in the morning and then escape, even during the holidays, you're able to find amazing terrain, and it's kind of nice also to focus a bit on an area and get to learn every little corner from it. That's something that I enjoy more and more. Snowshoes are more work, but way cheaper. Snowshoes is, they are a pain, because first of all, they really don't work that well. Like, you're really slow with a pair of snowshoes. And then as well, when you start to ride with the snowshoes on your back, it's usually super bulky. So it's a compromise. If you have nothing else, if you're really on the budget, that will be something that will take you somewhere. And for years we've done with snowshoes. But yeah, if you can get onto on a split board, it will change your world. I hope that split boards get cheaper in the future, because yeah, I think, you know, it's such a great tool for people yeah, to discover so much about the mountains. Yeah, riding in a resort is limited, and once you realize that you can go anywhere, that when your feet, you know, you see a mountain that's far away and you can access it, I think it's it just thrills you passionate and makes you a passionate snowboarder forever. What do you think of four parties split boards? I think the idea is really good. I tried to develop one a few years ago, you know, to try to have less width on the snowboards that you're splitting on, which will help you to traverse a lot better when the snow conditions are hard. That's really good. You have something on your back, but honestly, I've never tried one that's good. So I can't tell you how good or bad they are, but I've only heard good things about them. So just if you have the chance to go and try them. When does the Swiss Hütte reopen? That's a good question. I think I know that here the people in Verbier are not going up the resort to dismantle everything until the 6th of April. So that must be a bit of a deadline. But maybe we'll get expand to later. But I think that huts in the mountains are one of the worst places to get viruses, because you know, there's not so many ways to clean things, and being in a hut is a bit like being on a boat. Like everybody touches the same things and then puts it into their mouths later. So yeah, I guess we just need to be patient. But the mountains will always be there. And hopefully that corona fucking sorry, virus will be gone soon. Question from tuck. What's the best slab, Solomon? If you thanks. No, sorry. The main tips to give to become a better free rider.
It's gonna move you in there.
That's okay. All right, I'm getting moved.
No.
Oh, all right. Get a little tour of the house. Oh. All right. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Sorry, guys. Jeremiah's he made a split board by himself because it's cheaper. That's how I did that as well a few years ago. Actually, there might be on YouTube this old tutorial that I had that I did years ago on how to cut your split board and have a cheers. But yeah, you're gonna have to use a voile kit for that to make your own split board, which is good. But once again, a system that's dedicated and that's properly made for splitboarding will be yeah. Once you get on one of those, you never go back. What's your favorite region to ride in Europe? It's difficult because Europe has got a lot of different yeah, really cool terrain. I know I like well, in Switzerland you've got such crazy high alpine, like between the Bernese Oberland, Zermatt, all the Zermatt area, all the Semoritz area, all the area around Verbier. No, honestly, I think the Alps is so crazy. Like there's so much terrain to ride. I know I've been really impressed this season again going to the Dolomites. The conditions were bad, but seeing those couloirs everywhere and me being a huge fan of couloirs, I thought that, you know, this was my paradise. But yeah, it depends on the conditions, on the mood, who you're with and stuff. And but yeah, we're lucky to have really cool terrain around. Yeah. Any advice for intermediate riders how to continue learning? Group lessons in a resort for beginners only. Private ones are so expensive, but maybe some cool camps or schools. Well, there are more and more freeride snowboard dedicated schools that are coming up out there, and I think that's definitely a future because you know, like I think as a snowboarder, it's always easier to go with snowboarders. You see, you see in your approach the mountain in a different way, and I think that's really important to spread out the love of freeriding, and I think that there is a lot more people that want to learn more and more about freeriding. Like look how many guys you are today on this chat. Like this is amazing. So. I just encourage people to start their own freeride school in their resorts, like all the good guys, and to spread the good knowledge and to give more reach to people to go and get some really cool terrain. And what tools do you use to prep for backcountry trips? I'd love to dream about my next adventure. Honestly, there's really good like digital mapping is amazing. So like for years I used to use Google Earth. That would give you a really good idea about terrain. But then since a few years, FatMap has been coming up with worldwide really precise digital maps, and that has been it's been really helpful in some areas to being able to see, you know, with such high definitions, all the lines that are possibly out there, to really try to understand which orientation the faces are, to measure the distances, for example, from the coast till the mountains when you want to set up a camp, etc. and etc. So I know that the good old maps in papers are great, but with digital mapping you can really like get to learn a spot heavily before going, and that's really helpful when you want to go on adventures. What is your highest peak climbed, and do you do alpinism? I've always liked to do a bit of alpinism here and there, and it's helped my snowboarding a ton. I do a lot of rock climbing, and I've always done it for many years. So that has kind of led me into alpinism, and then I've realized like all the tools that I had to that I could use into freeriding. But there's one thing which I was never really into, is like the really high alpine, the altitude climbing. Anything like above 7,000, like that was never the goal for me. For me, the goal was always about snowboarding rather than like hitting a line onto a mountain. I've always tried to have a bit more of a free ride mindset rather than a mountaineering mindset where you just tick a box on a line. And I've always thought that free riding was kind of in a way dangerous enough. So I always felt in a way lazy, uninspired, and also scared to go into really high alpine terrain where you'd be put at risk because your lungs are giving up or stuff like this. High altitude has got a lot more hazard, and it brings up so many layers on top of the dangers that it kind of takes away from snowboarding. And to me, snowboarding is the base of it. Like a question from Seb: does your brother scare you in his adventures? Yeah, it's funny because I think he's a bit like the way I was like 10 years ago, like when I was his age. He's like fully into it. He's like so confident. He's at the peak of his game. And when I watch him, it's a bit scary, but at the same time, I trust him. And I think that's the thing, when you see someone sending it, you're not in his shoes. So it's always hard to have as much confidence as what he could have in himself. So yeah, I know sometimes I'm a bit scared. I know it's part of the sport, but I know he's learning more and more, getting more and more experience, and I trust his decision making. But in the mountains, you are never 100% safe. Yeah. Tuck. What do you think would be the best approach for ski resorts to become more eco-friendly? As it looks that very few resorts are showing commitment to reduce their environmental footprint. Apparently, I think a lot of ski resorts are doing quite a lot of efforts into about the climate, like with using renewable energies, like putting more and more like solar panels onto their lifts, being way more efficient with their with all their grooming and things like this. But apparently, by far, the biggest footprint like around ski resort comes from transportation. So this is really the one thing where people can make a huge difference. So if resort, really bring up better ways to transport, and if people, individuals, take the right decisions to use the train, to carpool, to use electric cars, that would be kind of the way to go, to try to be doing less of an impact. So maybe a way to do it would be, instead of trying to go to this resort that's far away, halfway across the world, and that makes you dream, to try to go to a smaller resort that's closer to your home, and that's a bit more of a home mountain kind of, and try to experience something else. That's maybe a way to be more eco-friendly, but that's a really wide subject, and there are many ways to approach it. And I think, ski resorts are making an effort. There's always more efforts to be done, and it's true for ski resorts, but it's true for us as pro riders. It's true for anyone that likes to go and ski, and it's definitely worth to try to keep on getting better, because I think that's the most important. Always tries to learn, to understand what we do, and to just improve. That's the way I see it, at least. Do you have a plan for doing a freeride school? I guess it would be a plan if I had enough time, but I don't have enough time. I know that this winter I've done a little camp for a weekend, and I really enjoyed it. And honestly, I really take pleasure into sharing what I've learned, and this is what I do through on this chat and through the how-to series. But maybe one day, who knows. If you have to live and work in a city but want to ride every weekend, where would you go? Vancouver or Innsbruck, or someplace in Japan? That's a good question. Vancouver is amazing for you have like the forest like really right next to the city, and you have also some good surfing. Innsbruck is really, really cool. It's a really good compromise. Actually, years ago I thought of moving there. Well, many years ago. Japan could be nice, but Japanese culture, you need to fit in there. So I guess it depends on you, but all three options there are really good. Which biking settings would you recommend to start freeriding and being able to enjoy piste in the same session? I struggle to find one setting for both practice. Honestly, well, I think a big tendency of people is to put like to go duck stance, especially if people start to ride with a park mindset, and I think that could be a bit limiting when you go free riding later. So personally, I've never been for duck stance, because I thought that it was like really tough on the knees, and that it would limit the ability of the body to go above your tail when you're on a hillside edge. But that's something personal, and then maybe if you have enough range of motion into your ankles, maybe that could work. But personally, to be more versatile, I would go somewhere around 0 on the back foot, and somewhere around like 15-20 on the front foot, and that would be kind of a good stance to being able to go a bit everywhere and to still do some switch. What do you think about carbon split boards? They seem to break easily. Carbon split boards, I'm not a big fan. First of all, well, okay, you gain some weight, but I think it's not really that crazy what you gain. But what I don't like about them is that they don't absorb the shocks like from the terrain. So as soon as you have icy and bumpy conditions, like everything comes back really into your legs, and it's like really quite tough to handle. So I think, to me, carbon split boards are definitely not the way to go. Yeah, and I prefer to have a tiny bit more weight, but have a board that will be more absorbing all of those bad vibrations, because I think that's horrible when you feel all the impacts in your legs. Have you been in Glarus, Switzerland? There's so big faces. No, I have never been there, but yeah, I would like to go in this area a bit more. Yeah, lots of little areas like this in Switzerland to visit for sure. No, in Bulgaria, never. How do you deal with fear? There's a full episode about how do I deal with fear, and basically the way I deal with fear is that I try to not hide it and forget it. I try to really acknowledge it, really tell myself, okay, it's there. It's there for a reason. And I try to differentiate whether it's good fear or bad fear, and I try to be really factual on what can happen, what are the dangers, and how much chance I have to overcome it or not. And that tells me if it's a good or a bad fear. And I try to really keep on the good fear in a way to be focused on all the dangers that could happen out there. And that's I think that's really helpful. Do you think your Free World Tour 2010 performance will ever be reproduced? To be honest, I really hope so. I really hope to see riders, and especially snowboarders, go and send it up there. I think it will for sure happen, because riders are just showing that they keep on improving, and they're showing amazing show. But yeah, let's see when it happens. I would be very happy to see that happen. Do you like carving? Yeah, I think carving can be really fun. And for carving, you need a pretty wide board. And usually with my boards, I like quite narrow boards, because I like to have the playfulness with them. But yeah, next year, my new like the XV, I'm making it a bit wider, and I think it might be kind of a lot nicer for carving. And I'm looking forward to play on that field a bit. Pop. What do you think about? No. Like a question from Julian to send it in a truffle. Truffle is whenever like all the terrain has been ridden and it's all like a big of a mess. And I think my advice to send it whenever it's a bit tracked is to just kind of find a stable position slightly on your back foot, and to try to go straight, and to try to choose the spots where you're going to break. So it's basically you put yourself, like I quite often use the eagle position, because that puts me into a really committed mode. And whenever it's kind of like pretty dirty terrain, and you start to commit and send it, whenever you hesitate, that's when you're going to put yourself in danger. So you're going to have to, when you commit, to know that you're going to have to commit until the spot where there's going to be a little pocket where you're going to be able to brake or slow down or make a turn. But yeah, commitment is the the key. Snowkite, Splitboard, or both? I think the combination of both is where I see the evolution for me. And yeah, I've been trying to do it a bit this season, a bit unsuccessfully, but yeah, now they do such compact snow kites that are like just with how do you say, like single, well, fuck, whatever. But they're so tiny, and like they just, you can have it in your backpack with your bar, and just use a really light harness for climbing, and that's your setup for snow kiting, so that you can afford go and do your tour, and as soon as you have a bit of wind, take the kite, and it will take you further. But yeah, that's something I want to explore more and more, and that I will spend my time doing for sure. Single skin, thank you. Yeah, my brain is getting like too much corona. What do you think about hard boots splitboarding? Yeah, I spoke about that earlier, but I think it's there's a future there, because for sure it works a lot better for touring. It is not really that sexy for snowboarding, and it kind of takes away a bit the pleasure of having soft boots. But I'm really looking forward for the industry to put itself together and like get a cool system which is going to be a hybrid between hard boots and soft boot, because I think that's the future for splitboarding and even for snowboarding in general. Yeah. Tac from Oliver. Someone is asking me, like, why am I using a plume hooks instead of Karakoram, of the Karakoram clips. It's true that the Karakoram clips really bring your board together, but I find that the plume hooks do it as well. So I've never seen really the difference, but yeah, maybe it would be worth like trying again. But yeah, honestly, yeah, I'm very happy with my plume hooks. Did you learn freeriding on your own or in a freeride school? No, I learned on my own. Well, I learned with other riders and with more riders more experienced than me. I learned by doing mistakes as well and by getting away with it. But yeah, if you have the chance to ride with a freeride school, for sure is really, really good. My daughter here is in a Freeride World Tour Junior course, and I see the benefit is so amazing because they touch a bit everything. Like they do freestyle kickers, they learn technique, they go with guides to learn about safety into the mountains, and I think that makes you such a well-rounded rider. And I would have dreamed to grow up like this, but yeah, it didn't exist back in the days. When I grew up, like people used to just tell us, "Don't go off piste; it's dangerous," and that's it. So we would just not go, and we would not understand why we would not go. But then eventually we would go and probably take super stupid risks because we had no idea of what we were doing. So if you can get yourself some experience while you're doing it, and try to learn and try to really get information, I think that's the way to go. Rather than just fearing it and pushing it away and not experiencing it, or experience it into a dangerous way. All right, last question. What would be your tips for snowboarding on spring heavy wet snow? Well, one tip would be to wax your board. Now, waxing your board makes a big difference in free riding, like for traverses, for flat sections, and even for like the board control feels a lot nicer when you have a well waxed board. But yeah, there's not really much tips to know about that. You're going to be a bit more back foot, and yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, you're gonna have to try to keep together, because if you're not well balanced, it's gonna pull you forward and make you crash. But yeah, I think there's not really much tips I could give like that. Yeah, you're gonna have to be careful not to sink your nose. I think that's definitely one of the things with spring riding. Well, there's still a lot of questions. Will there ever be a XV camp school? You guys are really wanting me to do that, huh? It could be cool. Yeah, let me think about it. What do you look when you're buying boots for splitboarding? What you recommend? Wow. I think what's important to know is to not buy what you think is cool, but to buy what you think will be making what you like to ride shine the most. So know your style, know your abilities, know the kind of terrain you're riding, and then buy the gear accordingly, rather than the opposite. I think that's definitely yeah, a way to see it. Hey guys, yeah, thank you so much for all this cool energy. I'm really psyched to see so much passion out there for freeriding. I think I will do it some other time because yeah, there was a great engagement and it's been really amazing. And I'll think about doing my own XV school. But yeah, in the meantime, yeah, feel free to watch some how-tos, talk to your friends. Yeah, like get your friends to subscribe and subscribe if you haven't had the chance to do it. And thank you so much for your support. I really deeply appreciate. And yeah, I'll do another session some other day. So maybe think of some questions and yeah, let's hope this coronavirus goes away quite soon so that we can go riding. All right. Muchos besos, amigos.